All right, welcome back to the podcast, everybody. Thank you for tuning back into this afternoon's updates. So, this one is pertaining to the Kentucky District Judge. Late last week, last Thursday, many of you know that a Kentucky District Judge was shot and killed by a Letcher County sheriff, former sheriff. He's no longer the sheriff, but Sheriff Sean Steins shot and killed Judge Kevin Mullins. The motive remains unclear. Um, this entire crime is just strange because we haven't heard anything come out besides what we have heard last Friday. Apparently, there was a lawsuit that was going on, and it named the Sheriff Steins, Sean Steins. Within that lawsuit, it accused Sheriff Steins of not properly educating and training his officers. It also said that a lady was allegedly sexually assaulted, blackmailed, coerced into doing sexual favors with one of the sheriff's deputies in exchange for her not receiving jail time or being on, probation because she couldn't afford a foot monitoring device. I believe that's what it was said. This situation goes deep and it sounds personal, the motive, whatever the motive is when it comes out. But in this podcast, I just want to give an update to what's going on. So, Judge Mullins was laid to rest yesterday afternoon on Sunday. Kentucky judge had lunch with the sheriff now arrested in killing, the court clerk says. When I first brought you this information, this is what I repeated to you. Just 3 hours before this former sheriff, shot the judge, him and the judge were planning to go out to eat. They were going to plan on having lunch. It's been said by sources that the former Sheriff Steins, was unusually quiet during their interactions. A local sheriff ate lunch with a prominent district judge known as Judge Mullins hours before allegedly shooting the judge in his chambers, according to a court official who said the killing last Thursday has stunned the small community of Letcher County, Kentucky. White's, what is it called? Whitesburg, I believe that's what it was. Circuit Clerk Matt Watt and saw district, or I'm sorry, Mike Watt saw District Judge Kevin Mullins and Letcher County former Sheriff Sean Steins shortly before noon on Thursday. He told CNN affiliate WKYT, describing the kind of encounter that might happen among coworkers in any workplace across the country. So, according to what Mr. Watt is saying, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Oh, wow. That's how it usually goes. Hello, Renee. Happy Monday, everybody. Hope that everyone's having a decent start to their week. He goes on to say that we were kind of joking around about national politics. Okay. And then I talked to the sheriff about attending the Sheriff's Association conference last week in Bowling Green, Kentucky. He asked him how that went, and Watts said, and then things went down the street to eat lunch. So this is the interactions. They asked him about the Sheriff's Association. That is a conference that was held the week prior in Bowling Green, Kentucky, which, if you don't know where that is, that's Western Kentucky, on the other end of Kentucky, and asked him how that went. Watts then said They went down the street to eat lunch. So this happened just hours before he shot the judge. Later that day, Steins, 43, a man whose role made him responsible for the judge's personal security, fatally shot Judge Mullins, 54, inside the Letcher County Courthouse in Whitesburg. According to the Kentucky State Police, Steins was arrested at the courthouse and is now being charged with first-degree murder, authorities said. What transpired in the judge's chambers moments before the fatal shooting that afternoon is still unclear. That's what a lot of people want to know. What was the jump off? Because with this commentary I'm about to play to you, it sounded as if Sheriff Steins had this planned out. He knew what he was doing. He had this whole thing planned out. This was not just something. At first, I thought this was, before knowing about this information, I thought it was just heat of passion. The judge probably said something to piss him off, and then he just pulled out the pistol and shot him on spot. Out of all people, it's crazy to think of the sheriff who was inside the judge's chambers is the one who killed the judge. The person supposed to be protecting the judge killed him. That's what I thought happened. But no, not at all. He had this whole thing planned out, from the sounds of it. Let's listen to what Court TV had to say about this Kentucky district judge who was shot and killed by the sheriff. Again, this happened last Thursday. Sheriff Steins is currently in custody. He's being held at a separate county courthouse, county jail, because of the obvious reasons. Another interesting thing about this case is if Judge Mullins was still with us, Judge Mullins would be assigned to Steins' case because he is a district judge. However, because he's not here, when this thing goes to trial, it's having to be moved to a change of venue for the obvious. This is just crazy. Let's see what Court TV has to say, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to like, share, and also subscribe.
Our top story this morning. We are learning more
Hi,
details
Angel
about the
Eyes.
fatal shooting of a judge in Kentucky. Former Letcher County Sheriff Sean Steins is in jail this morning, accused of killing District Judge Kevin Mullins. Mullins shot to death inside of his chambers after the two men apparently got into an argument. The visitation and the funeral for Judge Kevin Mullins was yesterday. Kaylee Randall from our affiliate WLEX reports.
I'm outside of the Jenkins Independent High School where the visitation and funeral for Letcher County District Judge Kevin Mullins just finished up.
You know, it's tragic that this has happened, especially since it became national news. There's already people have thoughts about this area anyway. And this has sort of drawn attention to that. It's been like a big cloud, dark cloud over us.
There was a somber atmosphere here as dozens of mourners came out to pay their respects to Mullins, who was shot and killed Thursday afternoon. The visitation was from 2 to 6 p.m. and the funeral began at 3 p.m. According to Kentucky State Police, Mullins was shot and killed in his judge chambers around 3 p.m. on Thursday. Letcher County Sheriff Sean Steins was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. A motive is unknown at this time. Some attendees
I'm doing good,
to
Angel Eyes. I hope that you're doing good too.
I
I hope that you're doing good, Renee. Better than good. I hope that y'all are great.
Several police agencies attended, such as Jenkins Police Department, Fleming Neon Police Department, and Whitesburg Police
I'm
Department.
just kind of bland
We
with
reached
my
out to the
commentary.
Mullins family, but they're asking for privacy during this time of mourning. In Letcher County, Kaylee Randall, LEX 18 News.
All right, thanks to WLEX for that report. Now, Sheriff Steins is going to be in court for an arraignment this Wednesday at 11 a.m. We're going to be filming that one. And
Okay, so Sheriff Steins, former Sheriff Steins of Letcher County, is scheduled to be in court this coming Wednesday at 11 a.m., I guess, for his arraignment. Okay.
Certainly going to provide you with updates as our Court TV team is en route to Letcher County right now. So anything we learn from our team on the ground there, we're going to bring to you on this program. We do have some new information this morning I want to share. So we understand that Letcher County Circuit Court clerk Mike Watts says that he saw the sheriff and the judge together shortly before noon, just 3 hours before the shooting happened.
This is what I was talking about. The clerk is saying that just three hours before he was shot, they went out to lunch together. Nothing seemed to be out of the ordinary, according to the clerk, except for Sheriff Steins being a little quiet. He was a little bit too quiet, but other than that, nothing seemed out of the place between the two men. They went out for lunch. It's also been said that when they came back to the courthouse right before this happened, there was an altercation that broke out. I would like to know exactly what was said in that altercation. What was the jump off? That's what remains unclear. What was the conversation about? And with yeah, Renee, it's lunch gone bad. Something could have happened at that lunch that triggered Sheriff Steins to do what he did. But honestly, if you want to know my opinion, the more research I'm doing into this and what I've gathered so far, it sounds like Sheriff Steins had this planned out, and he knew, or at least had a notion of what he was going to do to that judge. Listen very carefully to the lawsuit. Okay, this lawsuit, civil lawsuit, which was brought towards one of Sheriff Stein's previous deputies.
And he said that these guys were both getting ready to go out to lunch together. Indicate they're palling around together. And he indicated that.
And I'm also let me say this too. If you want to be more cryptic, and if you want to believe that Sheriff Steins had intention, he knew he was going to kill him. If you want to say that he knew what he was doing when he get back to the courthouse. Maybe he took his friend out for his last supper. Is it that? I'm trying to get into the psyche of this former sheriff. Is that how it went? So before you killed the man, you wanted to take him out to his last dinner? Is that what was going through his mind?
Sheriff Stein seemed a little quieter than usual. Okay, so that's what this law clerk found. Then we know that officials are saying that Sheriff Steins had been deposed last Monday in a lawsuit that was filed by two women, including one woman who claimed that a deputy forced her to have sex
it was two.
inside Judge Mullins' chambers for 6 months in exchange for staying out.
Okay, two women brought Sheriff Steins was named in a lawsuit that was brought by two women. It said that he was deposed in the lawsuit. One of these women claimed a deputy of Sheriff Steins forced her to have sex inside Mullins' chambers for 6 months in exchange for staying out of jail. Let me repeat that for the ones of you in the back. One woman who filed this lawsuit that he was deposed in claimed a deputy forced her to have sex with him inside the judge's chambers for 6 months in exchange for staying out of jail. Steins appeared to be angry, aggravated, and defensive during the deposition of this lawsuit that he was named in. So he appeared to be angry and upset. So that goes back to what some people have been saying about the judge, the people within that community, because there's been rumors flying and still circulating all in Whitesburg, all across Letcher County, all across eastern Kentucky, in that district, what was going on.
Of jail. That is the allegation. According to the lawyer who filed that suit, the sheriff appeared to be angry, agitated, and defensive during his deposition.
People, I'm
This
sorry.
is the number one mistake.
I clicked off of it accidentally, but people within that community were basically saying the judge was about to expose that sheriff big time. He was going to expose that sheriff. He was actually allegedly planning on doing it this week. He was going to expose him and bring him down this week. Allegedly. That's what's been said. Don't know how true it is. The only problem is, with that statement, why would he want to wait until this week to do it? People said that he was going to do it Friday or Monday. This happened on Thursday.
His deposition. I've got two great guests I'm going to bring in now. Former prosecutor, retired SLED agent, current lawmaker, attorney Tommy Pope, and retired criminal defense attorney, the man who represented
two
Jimmy
families
Arias,
destroyed.
Kirk
Absolutely.
Nurmi. Great to see you gentlemen this morning. Tommy, let me begin with you, please. As an investigator for many years, tell us the biggest questions you have in your mind, hearing the limited facts that we have today on this case, please.
Well, the one thing I thought about from the beginning, we always try to talk about what's preventable. I don't know how you would ever prevent these circumstances, because who at the courthouse is allowed to have weapons? Who is allowed to have access to the judge? So I think the piece that you ran before,
I don't think you could even prevented this from happening, because this was going to happen regardless. You're talking about the sheriff inside the judge's chambers, the bailiff. He was also a bailiff. He was also a bailiff for this judge before he was a sheriff. The whole point in the sheriff being there and the deputies inside the courtroom is for the judge's safety. So could this honestly have been prevented? I don't think so. I don't think it could have been prevented. This was not just a random act. And besides, the only people that are allowed to have guns inside the courthouse, inside the courtroom, inside the chambers would be the sheriff and or deputies.
I want to know the why. After hearing that little piece about the deposition, my inclination is that the sheriff was thinking and planning this way earlier than the time it happened. In other words, whatever occurred, whatever he was angry about, he was seeking out his opportunity.
Appreciate that, Tommy. I mean, when we think about the why, you're right. This is the biggest question.
Crimson.
Everybody's been asking me all weekend, what's the motive? What's the motive? What's the motive?
Oh, okay. That's who you're talking about, Tommy Pope.
Whodunit case. It seems, based on what officials say, that the sheriff was kind of caught red-handed, or maybe didn't care for some reason, or could it have been self-defense? So many questions. Kirk Nurmi.
I don't think it was self-defense. How would you want to say it's self-defense? Self-defense about what? The judge wasn't coming after him, or was he? What? Are you trying to say that the judge hopped out of the judge's chair and was coming after the sheriff, so the sheriff shot him? I don't think that's what happened. What probably happened was that judge said something, whatever it was. We don't know, because he took it to the grave. That's the thing about this story that's disturbing, is by the time this is all said and done, and we stop talking about it, and Sheriff Steins is held accountable for what he did, there's still going to be things you don't know. What was actually happening between that judge and uh, Sean Steins? Sean Steins probably ain't going to say anything if it's not coming from his attorney or a public offender. The judge isn't going to say anything because of the obvious: dead man tell no tales. What was said? What was said to upset that sheriff enough for him to pull out a gun and shoot him multiple times? Not once, not twice, but multiple times. That means 3 times or more. And with it being 3 times or more, that means the sheriff had intent to kill him. That's just my opinion. That's just my assertion.
As a practicing criminal defense attorney for so many years, tell me where your head is with the actions of the judge and assessing the facts, the actions of the sheriff. What questions do you have on your mind today, please?
Yeah, that's a good question too. I'm glad that you brought that up, Crimson. Did the courthouse have cameras when this shooting occurred? Some have cameras inside the court. I would figure that all cameras have some type of security, whether they want to live broadcast it or not. For the purpose of things like this, I suppose the judge could have had some metal in his drawer, Stranger Things. Yeah. I mean, some people's been saying that the judge had skeletons in his closet. And there's a lot of things there's a lot of rumors that are going around about the judge, and I'm not going to repeat them over here, but basically some are saying that the judge had skeletons in his closet. There's also people saying things about the people that are spreading things about the judge. For Mickey, Sean Steins, Mr. Steins, who shot and killed the judge, he was trying to smear the judge's reputation because he was about to get exposed by the judge. Are you drunk yet? We're taking shots every time that I say judge. I know it's early in the afternoon for some people. It's not 5 o'clock somewhere as of yet. But no, seriously, that's it's just within these small towns, it's worse. It's worse than it is in bigger cities because small towns hold secrets. There's a lot of shit that happens in small towns that gets swept underneath the rug. And when things like this happen, such as public figures, such as a judge being shot and killed and assassinated, usually it uncovers a lot of corruption and things that a community doesn't want necessarily to be out. Small towns are bad for that.
When we see that timeline, like Tommy, it is illuminating because you think it's just an act.
So I don't know who is right, who's justified. It's hard to say as of yet. But my guess is Mr. Steins did this out of rage. Whether it's premeditated or not, he did this because he was upset at that judge, and that judge was about to say something about him he did not want out.
Of workplace violence, and it is to some extent.
Or that judge could have, he could have been looking to put the sheriff behind bars for a long time. Who knows?
Extent, but
you can go all day and speculate.
About that camaraderie between judges and staff and lawyers and keeping everyone safe in the courtroom and that betrayal. But with Mr. Steins, and I'm not going to call him a sheriff anymore after what he did, ultimately, this was a man who was getting in deep. People's criminal minds tend to keep getting in deeper. They keep thinking that there's going to be some solution to the problem. If these allegations of
sexual misconduct have any merit. Perhaps the judge had some information in that regard. This might be really, like I said, not a sheriff, but a criminal trying to cover his tracks. And we see that in many different...
Yeah. I mean, that's what it's beginning to look like, is the judge was about to expose this former sheriff of something that he didn't want out. And so the sheriff, because he was put in a compromised and desperate position, resulted to desperate measures, which is, I don't give a damn if I have to go to jail or not. I don't care if I get charged with murder or not. You ain't speaking that about me. You aren't ruining my reputation. You will die before this gets out about me. And that's exactly what happened. What could be so bad that the judge was about to say for you to take his life?
Different situation, and the aspects of
unless
it
it's
don't really
something that
change
was
just
incredibly
because someone is
damning.
wearing a uniform of authority.
Excellent points, Kirk. Tommy, let me go back to you, please. When we think about who may prosecute this case, would you kind of walk us through assessments that may go on in terms of whether anybody might be conflicted out?
Sure. For your viewers, it is exactly that. It's where there's a conflict that either you're avoiding the possibility of impropriety or favoritism, or even the appearance of impropriety. In other words, if it was my sheriff, most likely what I would do was contact the Attorney General's office, who would either then handle it themselves or they would assign it to another solicitor around the state. Again, the reasoning being, you want the public to have faith that justice is served, because some of these are convictions, some are not, for all kind of different reasons. You never want it to have the appearance that it might have been an inside job. And knowing that small community, it was kind of like Union and the things we dealt with, it really hits home in those small communities. So it'll be better really to have an external prosecutor and obviously an external judge.
Great points, Tommy. You're so right, especially the small community, how everyone has just been shaken so badly because of this, understandably so. Kirk, let me go back to you, please, when it comes to the sheriff and what happens next for him. Let's just say, for the sake of our analysis, he says, I want Attorney Kirk Nurmi to come out of retirement and represent me. How are you going to assess things? Where might you go in determining what kind of defense would be best for him in court?
Well, if I'm coming off the bench, I'm going to give you a lawyerly answer, and that is, it depends, Julie. It depends on, because we know that the defendant and the court and everyone else knows a lot more than we know. But, and I say one thing is, it depends, is, do I have a prosecutor to talk to? Is the specter of the death penalty an issue here? I'm going to assess everything I can. I'm going to start making inroads with his family. So if I need information, so I'm going to do everything I can in terms of, like I said, that's.
And see, that's been said too by people in that community, was the sheriff had demons of his own. He struggled with mental health issues, whatever that means, not justifying what he did, but for the sake of what they're talking about, could that be used as a legitimate defense? The reason of insanity plea. He was struggling with mental health issues. It's also been said that when this thing does go to trial, they're going to have to move it elsewhere. Clearly, again, that community is going to be very biased against that sheriff. And whenever this does go to trial, he's not going to get a fair shake, especially with the jury. Because chances are people within that district, everybody knows within that small town who Sheriff Mullins was and who Judge Mullins was and Sheriff Stein was. I suppose the judge could have had some mental in his drawer. Oh wait, I've already read that. Was this an inside job? Because I think it was. I think that's another possibility. Did someone help Mr. Steins carry out his plans, or was this just Sheriff Steins? As future updates come out about this baffling, mysterious case coming out of Letcher County, Kentucky, about this judge being murdered by the sheriff, I will be sure to keep you posted on any updates that I receive. This is an ongoing story. Once again, Sheriff Steins is scheduled to be back in court this Wednesday at 11 o'clock a.m. for his arraignment. And that's going to be held at another courthouse. Not sure which one. What the hell's happening? This is very strange. Anyways, like, share, and also subscribe. Thank you for watching Bandit Network TV. I will talk to you sooner than later. Have a great rest of your day.